Hello friends and welcome to another Legion Beta video. Tal the Tank here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the legendary items and set bonuses in the Legion Beta currently for the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now as you all know, or if you've been watching the things you know, this was supposed to come out on Monday. It's coming out on Tuesday because Monday the world server was basically down the entire time. This guy's been stuck in Val Shirar, which is where I'm at right now. And I just had to go ahead and do a Druid video, but that's fine. Essentially what I'm going to be doing in this video is we're going to first talk a little bit about any remaining thoughts I have on the Vengeance Demon Hunter, especially after having to go through the Broken Shore, the starting experience, the artifact quest. That's going to be for all the different tanks. And just kind of my lingering little thoughts and things to kind of refresh you guys as to how it's working and little mechanics of the class and all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to be taking a look at the set bonuses for the tier set that's going to be coming out for the Vengeance Demon Hunter as it is right now, as well as any legendaries that Blizzard is saying you can go ahead and look for. It's not a full list of all the legendaries in the game, but the ones that are currently being shown in the Dungeon Journal, so we can go ahead and get an idea of how powerful these things are going to be. And let me just say once again, they are powerful. Okay? Keep this in mind. As a mythic tank, or as a potentially mythic dungeon person that you want to be, if you have an eye towards the hardest content in this game, you need these items. You do, flat out. There's not much of a choice going on here. As far as how rare it's going to be to get them, don't know. Blizzard has said that they're supposed to be very rare, but you can target which ones you get. And I mean, I only see it being one way or the other. You work really hard for it and you can get it, or you can literally go months and never see it. And if you can go months and never see it, then the system is broken to begin with. Just throwing that out there. So I don't know how it's going to be for sure, but God help us all if that's the case. Anyways, as far as the Vengeance Demon Hunter goes, you don't actually do the Broken Shore. I don't know if that's intended for Demon Hunters, but you basically do the starting zone that they have, then the Vault of the Wardens that you're in. So you go Mardoom, Vault of the Wardens, then you go and you collect your artifact. Playing the class, it's just very, very clear to me, once again, that when you are in Mardoom and you choose Vengeance as your spec versus Havoc, all of a sudden, while you were actually able to kill things and do well in the starting experience, you're just brought down like a rock to actually be very, very weak. Vengeance is a weak spec until they get more of their spells. Havoc is pretty weak as well, but Chaos Strike is so powerful for them that they kind of get by with it, with that and Eye Beam, so they're not as crippled. I gotta say, leveling a Vengeance isn't super crazy fun until you get your artifact, and going through the artifact itself, the artifact quest itself is kind of a pain in the ass. It's not hard, it's just a pain in the butt. But anyways, all your abilities are still pretty much the same. Nothing's really changed. You still have Shear generating you pain, as well as providing you a means to use Soul Cleaver Fracture if you talent into it. You still have Demon Spikes as your active mitigation, along with Empower Wards from magic. Emulation Aura is still fucking badass because it gives you pain generation as well as doing a bunch of AoE damage. You still have your amazing, amazing utility in your Sigils, which as a tank and looking at some of the other tanks is good to have some rage utility, and these are fantastic. Darkness still exists, which is recently added. It's going to reduce the chance that spells and melee attacks hit you and your party or your raid by 30%, which is huge. Let's be super clear about that. Even if against a boss, it doesn't work on his abilities, it doesn't work on his spells, doesn't work on his arcane explosion. Even if it's literally just the auto attacks that you're reducing for you and your co-tank, it is still a massively powerful cooldown. Do not misunderstand or underestimate the power of this cooldown. It's a big fucking deal, so it's good that you have that. Fiery Brand's still fantastic, and Soul Carver is you just do so much damage to a target. They do fire damage, and then you shatter 2 fragments from them, and they keep shattering lesser fragments from them. If you need a quick refresher, Vengeance Demon Hunters is all about managing your pain and lesser soul fragments. These fragments will heal you. They will provide you cooldown reduction. They can eventually give you the chance to pop into Metamorphosis for a couple of seconds, which when you're in Metamorphosis, your maximum and current HP is increased by 30%, and you just generate pain every 1 second. It's fantastic. Lesser Soul Fragments are very, very good. And Soul Cleave actually pulls them in and heals you. And we're going to look at this Camel Hoarder over here as he runs by in the wilderness on his little rocket and a Fairy Dragon. Fairy Dragons are cool. Brightwing scares the shit out of me, but those Fairy Dragons are nice. Anyways, nothing too much has changed for the Vengeance Demon Hunter. My criticism is still I hate that they will not have their talents available to them until 110. I understand why. This is a new class, and this is the first time that a new class is being allowed to start literally where everyone else is at. DKs came in and they had to go through Burning Crusade to get to Wrath. Monks came in, they had to go all the way up to Mists of Pandaria. Demon Hunters are starting in Legion. You do not have to go through Cataclysm, you don't have to go through Mist, you don't have to go through WoD. You just straight up at Legion. So I understand why they're easing people into the complexity, quotation marks, of the specs by making your talents be every 2 levels or so. The issue for me is that you don't get a real sense of what it's like to play a class until you have all their baseline spells and then their talents. The artifact traits kind of give you your full strength, but rotationally, you are not complete until you have all your talents and your artifact ability. I have my artifact ability, I have my baseline spells, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 talent tiers that are still not available to me because I have to level up, obviously. It just means that you may not have a genuine impression of what it's like to play this until you're able to get through to 110, and then of course once you have your artifact traits that just make spells be as powerful as they should be. Remember, you're going to be able to get all the artifact traits. Beyond that, it has a lot of really cool interactions. I know that tuning still needs to be done. Spirit Bomb I don't think is actually worth using, but I want that to be a rotational ability that's good. I am still lamenting the fact that they changed this tier, but oh well. And other than that, I mean, it's still really cool. Whether it's worth playing or it's still really good to play, I'm not entirely sold on it yet. I think they're a little bit squishy as tanks. They need a little bit of buffs maybe. It doesn't help that as a Demon Hunter, you get trinkets during the starting experience that are purely DPS trinkets and not tanky trinkets, so I very much recognize that I'm less tanky than the other 100 premates, but that's alright. All in all, it's a very fun spec to play. I have fun at least. I love being able to manage my pain. I love having different options for it. Good overall. But now let's get into the point of this video. I don't want to talk too much about stuff that doesn't pertain to this specific video. We're going to be looking at set bonuses and legendary items today. So as far as set bonuses go, these are just your Warglaives, the ones you start out with, the ones you get at the Vault of the Wardens, and then this is your garrison. I'm going to do this in every video, I swear. It's not artifact, it's not garrison. It's your Order Hole campaign. Order Hole campaign. This is a set that you'll be able to achieve from it. All the different classes get this. When we looked at the Druid, they actually only had, I think it was a 4 set and a 6 set, but it's actually going to be 8 sets that you can, 8 pieces that you can get to give you some little bonus. I don't know if you're going to be likely to be holding on to this very long. If you can see that the Vestments of Second Sight, which is either going to be the Nighthold or the Emerald Nightmare raid tier set, it's A785. It's almost 100 eye levels higher. This is probably going to be replaced by Dungeon Blues unless the set bonus is really good, which, I mean, it's going to increase your out-of-combat regeneration in the Broken Isles. When you're below 35% health, you take 50% reduced damage. Your Agi's increased, and Chaos Strike and Soul Cleave have a chance to give you haste by 700. It's not too crazy, but, I mean, it's a nice little bonus, I guess. But we're going to get into the good stuff now. Now, your set is the Vestment of Second Sight. Okay? Doesn't look too cool. But then again, it doesn't have all the items. You don't have the little feet and the waist and all that kind of stuff. And this is just what appears to be the normal set. So not heroic, not mythic, none of that. The set bonus, though, is the 2 set. Soul Cleave costs 10 less pain. Okay. That's nice. I mean, Soul Cleave is your big active mitigation button. It will heal you, do damage to everything in front of you, and consume all soul fragments around you. So it's a big deal. And having it be 30 pain instead of 40 is nice because it's going to make it so only 3 shears are needed to generate it, or a Fellblade and a shear, which I wish I could show you, but I'm not 102, so go figure. So it's a nice normal 2 set bonus, but the issue comes when we get to the 4 set. Soul Cleave reduces the remaining cooldown Demon Spikes by 3 seconds. So Demon Spikes is a 2-charge recharging system that's reduced by haste, and its baseline with a little bit of haste from the starting experience to everything is about 3 seconds, and it costs 10 pain. So what this means, 13 seconds, and it costs 10 pain, and it lasts 6 seconds. You can already keep up demon spikes up for a decent amount of time. With this force set, I would not be surprised if you can keep it up almost 100% of the time, as long as you're able to manage your pain generation to get Soul Cleave off more often. It wouldn't surprise me to think that you would have an almost 100% uptime on demon spikes. Now, an issue with tanks in general and their active mitigation in Legion right now is they feel very, very squishy without it. This is not a case of active mitigation makes you stronger at important moments, and every other time you're okay, you're strong, you know, you're gonna need heals, you're gonna take some hits, but you're not gonna be in crisis mode. In Legion, it seems to be flipped. When you do not have active mitigation up, you are in crisis mode. You are in holy shit, I'm getting fucking raffle stomped. When you have it up, you're healable. You're sort of able to sustain a little bit. Healers are able to keep you up. It's not a playstyle I particularly enjoy, but at the same time, it is something that I just need to adjust to. And again, without all the artifact traits, without all the talents, it does make a big difference. A lot of your artifact traits do things that are really, really important. I mean, we're going to have to kick this out. So, some of the artifact traits. It gives you healing for fire damage that you're dealing. You have a chance to pop into Metamorphosis randomly for 5 seconds when you consume a Soul Fragment. That is freaking huge. That's a huge amount of pain generation and max HP that you're just getting all the time. Fiery Brand's going to be doing more stuff. You have Soul Fragments reducing the damage you take. You have a bunch of talents and artifact traits that are going to be making you a little more survivable. So again, with this, I wouldn't be surprised if Demon Spikes can be almost kept up 100% of the time. As far as active mitigation goes, it's not the strongest force that we've ever seen in the game. It's not going to change your rotation too much. It's not going to impact your playstyle. It's just going to make you a little bit better at keeping it up and making you Soul Cleave more often. It's a nice standard force set, and honestly, I'm not too surprised that that's happening for this new class because again, people still have to adjust to using all their abilities in a normal raid setting. Throwing in a crazy force set that switches the rotation up and everything probably isn't a good idea. I would very much expect that for the next raid set. The next tier set to be more impactful towards the rotation versus this just making the rotation easier on you without having to resort to talents and everything. So that's that. But with all that being said, we're going to get to the legendaries. So we've already seen this neck piece, which is going to give you an absorb shield for 25% of your max health for 30 seconds after not taking damage for 5 seconds. This is one of those. There's a couple of legendaries that are available to everyone. This is one of them. As a tank, it's only going to be really useful when you're not tanking the boss at the moment. And unlike the Guardian Druid that has a huge amount of health, you don't have that mastery boosting you up. If, for example, this was to proc during your Metamorphosis, that would be awesome because it'd be 30% extra health. That would make you give you an absorb shield for 25% of your max health when you're in that Metamorphosis state, and it would stay with you when you have the shield pop up. But other than that, it's not too much of a crazy amazing thing. If you get it, nice. If you don't, oh well. I honestly see this as being way more useful for like DPS or healers. This almost seems like a low tier level legendary, and that it's very common, anyone can use it, and it's not as powerful. Then you have this ring that basically gives you 70% move speed when you CC a target. You are a demon hunter with double jump, glide, some sort of travel cooldown. They have Infernal Strike, which is fucking amazing. You don't need that, and I would almost say that unless the ring that you have is just really, really shit eye level and you have no other legendary available, you probably won't ever use this. Just for the stats alone, you'll use it, but if you have another legendary, you'll probably use that instead. Then you have this waist that's available to all the leather classes. You saw this in the Druid, and this is going to increase the amount of physical damage, or no, let me say that all over again. Your attacks cause an additional 100% damage as physical to enemies above 95% health. This is pointless because an enemy or a boss does not stay above 95% health for more than a few seconds. Most bosses you lust, and even if you don't lust, you use your cooldowns almost always on the pool because you want to get as many cooldowns as you can throughout the fight. Basically a useless waste, if I just have to be honest. But again, this is a leather-specific legendary. It's a little stronger than these, quotation marks, but still it's very generic. But now we're going to go ahead and get into the actual Demon Hunter stuff. So this is a Demon Hunter only legendary. You will take 20% reduced magic damage while Immolation Aura is active. Holy shit. Immolation Aura. You're using this all the time because it does decent damage, it does AoE damage, and it generates 20 pain over 6 seconds, and it has a 13-second cooldown. Having this also make it a 20% magic damage cooldown is ridiculous. It'll be a little annoying when you want to use it to pick up ads instead of using it as a cooldown, but because it's up so often, the last 6 seconds, and it has 13-second cooldown, you can keep this up almost about 50% of the time. And as you get more gear and you get more haste and you reduce cooldowns even more, you'll be able to use it more often. As a Demon Hunter, you have passive magic damage reduction in the form of demonic wards. So your tattoos reduce magical damage taken by 10%. And Demon Spikes only reduces physical damage and gives you parry. So they also have Empower Wards, which reduces magical damage taken by 30% for 6 seconds. So it's going to give you an extra 30% magic damage reduction on demand. Doesn't cost you anything. You just use it when you need to. And if you then combine that with Emulation Aura, if it stacks multiplicatively, I think I'm using that word correctly because, again, I'm not a math guy. If that stacks together, that'll be 50% magic damage reduction on demand every at least 30 seconds and 20% every 13 seconds. That's ridiculous. It's not going to be needed in every single fight. But the magic heavy fights, Lei Shi, never forget, fuck that boss. If you ever have a boss like that again, having this cloak is going to be absolutely monstrous. That's going to be something you're going to want to keep. You're going to want to hold in your bags for that magic damage fight, and then you're just going to be rocking it. Very powerful legendary. Worryingly powerful, sadly. Your next one is Metamorphosis resets the remaining cooldown in all your sigils. Now, the thing about this one is your sigils have a lot of utility. As far as sigils that come from talents, you only, let me make sure I'm not going to sound dumb when I say this, get one sigil from talents, which is Sigil of Misery, which just does a Disorient for 30 seconds. It's okay. It's not the most amazing thing in the world. Obviously, disorients can be taken off by just hitting the target, so it's definitely not something you're going to want to use in a pug. And then you have a couple of talents that increase your sigils by making them go faster, more range. It's going to reduce cooldown on sigils. You're going to be able to do sigils on your feet with, like, use it and forget it. You don't have to aim it anywhere. The thing about this, though, is that your primary sigils is Sigil of Flame, which is a rotational sigil you use all the time, especially when you have that artifact trait that gives you healing for fire damage. Use this on a big pack of enemies. You're going to be healed for a bunch. And then you have Sigil of Silence, which is just an AoE silence and a targeted ability on top of Arcane Torrent if you're a Blood Elf, because holy shit, Arcane Torrent's like the best racial in the game, guys. I've been saying it for forever. It's fantastic. It even gives you 15 pain. Seriously, Arcane Torrent, best racial in the game, especially for raiding. How many things do you need to interrupt? How many things are casting multiple times they need to interrupt, and you need some pain generation? I'm telling you guys, Arcane Torrent. But then the most overpowered sigil is Sigil of Chains, which is Death Grip for Vengeance Demon Hunters on a 2-minute cooldown, untalented. Okay, and it snares. Death Grip, guys. You are one of 2 specs in the entire game that have access to Death Grip. And while in the current game on live, Death Grip is an amazingly powerful ability, and you need multiple DKs for certain boss encounters because of how powerful it is, maybe that will change a little bit in the landscape once we get into Legion, just because of the fact that obviously now that it's not as widely available to all the DKs, maybe it's just not counted on as much, but I still believe it's going to be a very powerful tool in specific situations. So, the big cooldown that you want to reduce with your Metamorphosis would be Sigil of Flames, Sigil of Chains. The problem is Metamorphosis is your shield wall. You use this when you're trying to, to save yourself. Does this work with the artifact trait that puts you into Metamorphosis real quick? Maybe. If it does, holy shit, that's a balancing nightmare. If it doesn't, that makes a lot of sense. Whether this will be super important to have or not, I honestly don't know. Having Mass Grip on a super low cooldown if you're talented and if you use Metamorphosis is kind of a really big deal. It's a 3-minute cooldown. You can use it every once in a while. You have ways to reduce the cooldown of the sigils and everything. But as far as, is this better than the cloak? I don't think so. Unless the artifact trait lets you reset it using this. If it does, you're going to be spamming the Sigil of Flames like crazy. You're going to be spamming Gorfine's Grasp like crazy. Because trust me, when I was doing the PvP stuff, I was going into Metamorphosis every once in a while. It happens. Potentially powerful, but only for sigils, which makes me still think that the cloak is way, way better and for general tanking. but it's something you're going to want to keep and pick up. Then you have wrist that make Soul Cleave reduce the remaining cooldown of random sigil by 8 seconds. Again, a lot of emphasis on sigils. With this though, you can very specifically make it so that your Sigil of Flame is up more often, because it's very likely that Sigil of Chains will be scheduled for specific moments when ads pop up. You probably won't be needing to use this all the time, and if it is on cooldown, well then you have a chance to get it reduced by 8 seconds, which is always going to be good. So again, nice to have. The major sigil you're using constantly is Sigil of Flame, which again is just fire damage and then a dot, which stacks with your traits. So it's a little bit of additional healing. Not too much. The fire healing isn't actually all that much, even when you count for all the fire damage that you deal. But it's a decent, like, little soothing amount of healing that comes in. But as far as being very powerful, still not better than this cloak. Then you have a ring that gives you 20% leech while Demon Spikes is active. Now, I've already said that you can almost keep up Demon Spikes 100% of the time. I wouldn't be surprised if with the Force Set you can keep it up 100% of the time that you're actually tanking a boss. Of course, remember, you swamp off on bosses, so when I say almost all the time, I don't mean literally the entire time during the fight, I mean while you're actually tanking. With this, I wouldn't be surprised if you have situations where you're tanking the boss and you have 20% leech up on you 24/7. Because you can have Demon Spikes up a lot, you can have it be reduced by your Force Set, you can have it be giving you that leech, which is just additional healing on top of your fire healing, on top of everything else that you have going on, your soul fragments, your healers, just additional healing. So I see this as a very powerful thing to have. Demon Spikes is already a very powerful cooldown, a very powerful active mitigation. You want to keep this up all the time. Giving it some leech is just icing on the cake. As far as magic damage fights, you're going to want to have this up all the time, but I can very easily see this being the preferred one to have when you're doing a physical damage boss, or just a boss of a nice mixture where you have Demon Spikes up all the time, you're getting good use out of it, and you're able to do a lot of damage to heal yourself. So anything that makes tanks do more damage, things like that, will make this scale out of control. Another good legendary. And then you have the instant initial damage from your Immolation Aura. Immolation Aura does damage and then radiates fire. So it's damage, radiate damage. So the instant damage from Immolation Aura reduces the remaining cooldown of Fiery Brand by 3 seconds for each enemy hit. What does this mean? Big pack of enemies spawn. You throw your Fiery Brand on the boss, you run into the pack of them with this. Immolation Aura, boom, you've just reduced it by 15 seconds on a group of 5. And this is already a minute cooldown, so you've reduced it by a bunch. It'll be useful in certain situations, especially if you combined it with Burning Alive, which every 2 seconds your Fiery Brand deals fire damage and spreads to a nearby enemy. It's nice. I mean, if you want to be, if we're going to get serious about this for a second, how many enemies do you have to hit to make Fiery Brand be on a super short cooldown? You have to think, if this is a minute cooldown, that means 60 seconds. And I'm terrible at math, so I'm going to take out my calculator. And please don't laugh at me. I'm legit, I'm the worst fucking person when it comes to mathing anything. So, 60 seconds divided by 3, 20. So you'd have to hit at least 20 enemies with the initial hit of Fiery Brand, or not Fiery Brand, Immolation Aura to reduce the cooldown entirely. But, and this is important, there's a 13-second cooldown on this. You don't have to hit 20 immediately. You can hit 5 twice, and then with time passing in between, you'll have it back immediately. This is a good spell. I like this. If you're relying on Fiery Brand a lot, and there's a lot of AoE, because remember, if you're just hitting one target, that's shit. That's little seconds being trimmed down. It's not gonna matter. If there's AoE, and you're relying on Fiery Brand for any situation, take these, especially with the talent that lets Fiery Brand's damage reduction spread to enemies. Very good boots for that. Overall, I would say that the Demon Hunter legendaries are a little more powerful than the Guardian Druid ones, but in particular, the problem is you want to have Cloak of Fell Flames almost all the time, I would say, because all bosses have a good mixture of physical and damage, and magic damage is going to almost always be the more dangerous of the two. I see the Cloak being very powerful. I see the Shoulders being powerful if the artifact trait that puts you in Metamorphosis also counts for this. This will be stupidly powerful for that. Soul Cleave reducing the cooldown of random sigils, not as good. 20% leech while Demon Spikes act is very good, and these feats being situationally good in an AoE fight. So AoE fight, general standard fight, only good if trait affects it. Decent. use it if you don't have anything else, and then probably the best of the bunch. Lots of choices here. Lots of choices. And maybe I'm wrong for immediately dismissing these three. I'm not wrong about dismissing this one. Fuck that. You're not going to be seeing things very much. And even if you do, you don't need 70% move speed the entire time. No class needs 70% move speed. Not even Death Knights need that much move speed for 10 seconds during when they're tanking. Um, okay, this one's probably useless too. But the neck, as well as the rest of these, are the ones that I kind of see as having value, having a good point, having something that in various situations I can see myself slotting them in and out. So it's important to keep that in mind that that is kind of the idea here. If you can get your hands, if we as players are able to get our hands on multiple legendaries, or the dream, all of the legendaries for your spec in your class, then you're going to slot them in and out depending on the situation. Sometimes that may mean that you're slotting out your cloak, which is part of your tier set now. Let's just throw that out there. There's 6 items in your tier set. You only need 4 to do your 4 set. But some of these legendaries, like the cloak, like the shoulders, take up a tier slot. So what does that mean? You're going to want to hold on to items more than ever before, because you're going to be slotting out legendaries and other just normal, like maybe I need this back for this fight, but then if I don't put on a different tier set, maybe I don't really use the shoulders. If I don't put on a shoulder tier set, I'm not going to have my 4 set. I want my 4 set all the time. Maybe. I don't know if the Vengeance one's actually that good. So you're going to want to hold on to items, especially the legendaries, especially tier sets, anything that can proc one of your 4 slots that you need for the 4 set. Overall, it's just worrying how good these are. It really is. It bothers me because they haven't been clear yet about what it's going to take to get these legendaries. And I think they haven't been clear because they don't know. And if they don't know, but they've already made the items, that's when you get into a bad situation. If they legitimately want people to have very low chances of having these items, if they want it to be very special when someone has this, so the drop rate is ludicrously low, the person that gets that Fell Flames cloak, the person that gets the Lucky Runemaster's Pauldrons, that person's going to be so powerful. And it's not going to be because they're good at the class. It's not going to be because they worked really hard, they learned with their team, they did some intrinsic little thing and were able to beat the encounter. It's going to be because he had 20% magic damage reduction on a 13-second cooldown. So the healers didn't have to worry about him in certain times. They didn't have to expend as many tank cooldowns. They could let him go in solo and do something off by himself. That's the problem with these legendaries. As a Mythic Raider or a Mythic Dungeon, Mythic Dungeons, challenge modes, all that kind of stuff that you want to do, you're going to need to get your hands on some of these items. Maybe not at the start, but eventually. And eventually happens a lot sooner than you might think. So that's pretty much my little overview over the legendaries for Vengeance Demon Hunter. A lot of interesting options. A little bit of shoring up more of the weakness of the Vengeance Demon Hunter. I find that magic, even with all the other magic damage reduction, it kind of just wrecks me sometimes. But then very interesting that they're putting even more emphasis on the sigils. I wish we had more sigils we can talent into besides just Misery. Misery is not that. Misery is a little miserable. But it's interesting. It's very interesting what they're doing here with the legendary items. But anyways, guys, that's been my little overview of the update to what it is like playing the Vengeance Demon Hunter through the starting experience again, with the little changes, getting the artifact from the artifact quest, just doing a little bit of leveling of Val Shirar, as well as just looking at the legendary items and the set bonuses. If you like this video, guys, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing more of these. Next one that will be coming out is going to be the DK. This video should be coming out on Tuesday, so DK will be on Wednesday. And I hope you guys I hope you guys enjoy this kind of stuff. I'm just putting out some more discussion about the different aspects of the tank, because remember, when you're choosing a tank class, when you're going to be playing a tank class, it's not just about the spells and how they play. Are they good? Are they not? It's, does a legendary item make them good? Okay? Because legitimately speaking, I haven't looked at all the legendaries yet, but there could be a very big issue that I have with a tank class, or an issue that a tank class has in general, that is very easily solved by a legendary item. And all of a sudden, something like a Cough Cough Prot Warrior goes from being awful to being great. And again, I rag on Prot Warrior a lot. It's not that they're awful. It's just that the other tanks have better tools than them, and they don't get as punished for having their class fantasy as the Warrior does. And I'll talk about that when I actually get to my Prot Warrior, which is going to be probably on Friday, I think. That's if I rearrange the names right. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I very much appreciate you if you sat through the whole thing, if you heard my thoughts. Go ahead and put your thoughts down in the comments. Maybe give me some ideas of what you guys are thinking right now. But I'm going to be making more of these videos again because it's important to talk about all aspects of the tanks. And then once I finish doing all that stuff and I do my little dungeon run, I'll give my final opinions on what the best tanks are, what I'm going to be playing personally, and what I think you guys are going to want to do if you want to have the best vet. But otherwise, Vengeance Demon Hunters have a very interesting mechanic and interactions going on. They're fun to play. I like them. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. My name is Tal. See you around.